Yeah, we have quorum now.
All right. Good morning. We'll call the meeting to order of the MPO Technical Committee, the December 3rd, 2020 meeting. Can I get approval of the agenda?
Tregesser, so moved.
Second, Miller Ankeny.
All right. We have a motion and a second. Any further discussion on the approval of the agenda?
The only item I would note is that the tentative agenda that was sent out is misnumbered.
Okay. Looks like we're missing a number 5 on that.
Yep.
Okay. Sounds good. We'll note that change. Any other corrections on the agenda? If not, we'll consider the agenda approved. Next up, approval of the meeting minutes of the October 29 MPO Tech meeting. Can I get a motion and a second on that?
I'll motion to approve the previous month's minutes. Huesman.
Second, Davis.
All right, we have a motion and a second. Any further discussion on the approval of the meeting minutes of the October 29 meeting? Anybody opposed to that motion? We'll consider that motion approved. Thank you. Next up is a report and vote on the federal fiscal year 2021 TIP program amendment. Shreyoshi.
Yes, thank you. So you all might recall that a couple months ago, the MPO funding subcommittee approved excess TAP funding for a handful of projects. The primary funding went towards the trestle to trestle trail bridge, which got washed out last year. And then at that point, the committee decided to allocate the rest of the funding to a few other projects that received TAP funding as well. So at this time, we are simply seeking a TIP amendment to update and program the additional funding amounts that were awarded. And so you can see the amounts over here. And so with that, if you have any questions about this amendment, I'd be happy to answer at this time. Otherwise, we're seeking an approval to proceed with the TIP amendment to incorporate this additional funding. Thank you.
All right, are there any questions for Shreyoshi on this matter? If not, we're looking for a motion in a second.
Tregesser, so moved.
Second, Huesman.
All right, we have a motion and a second. Any further discussion? Anyone opposed to this motion? If not, we'll consider this motion approved. Thank you. Next up is another TIP amendment.
Yes, thank you again. So the amendment request before you has been requested from the city of Des Moines for their East Douglas reconstruction project. The project was, or is rather, currently programmed in fiscal year 2020. However, the project is expected to be let early next year. Therefore, the city has requested us to roll the project and program it in fiscal year 2021. Therefore, we are seeking to do an amendment to add the project into the fiscal year 2021 through 2024 TIP and program it in fiscal year 21. Other than that, there are no changes to the project itself. So with that, staff supports the amendment request. And if you have any questions, I'll be happy to answer at this time. Thank you.
All right, any questions for Shreyoshi on this TIP amendment request? If not, we're looking for a motion in a second.
Move approval, Davis.
Second, Huesman.
All right, thanks. We have a motion and a second. Any further discussion on this TIP amendment? Anyone who wishes to vote against this motion? If not, we'll consider that item of motion approved. And we'll move on to the next, which is a report on the Surface Transportation Block Grant Program schedule. Zach.
Thank you. We want to give you a quick update on the STBG schedule for federal fiscal year 2025 funding. So the applications are going to be posted on our website sometime tomorrow. We'll send an email out when that website goes live. All the application materials will be on there, including the applications, the questions, other additional resources that will help people fill out those applications. The deadline for the applications this year is going to be January 15th of next year, 2021. And then we'll have the applicant presentations will be sometime in March. We haven't scheduled that actual date yet, but it will be sometime in March. Again, all these application materials are going to be online, and we'll send an email out. There's a website link there as well for where those applications will be located. Next slide, please. A quick update on the TAP schedule. It will be a little bit different than the STBG schedule. You may recall that we were going through a process to update the scoring criteria for the TAP program. There was some concern expressed by the executive committee, and they requested that we do a little bit of additional review on this. Mainly, they wanted to see us take this through the City of Des Moines Trail and Greenway Advisory Committee. So we've done that. We didn't get any significant comments from that committee. So we will be presenting the criteria again to the executive committee in December for their review, and then bringing it back for them to vote on in January. At this point, we're not anticipating that there'll be any more concerns with the updated criteria. So we do expect in January for that criteria to be approved. And once it is approved, we'll send an application, we'll post the application on the website, and probably set a deadline for some time in mid to late February for those TAP applications. So that's kind of where we're at with the STBG and TAP schedules for federal fiscal year 2025 funding. If you have any questions about the application process or the schedule, I'd be happy to take those questions at this time.
All right, any questions for Zach on the schedules? All right, if not, we'll move on to the next item, which is the regional ITS architecture update. Z.
Yeah, thank you. Good morning, everyone. This will be an overview of the MPO's regional ITS architecture update project. To begin, a regional ITS architecture is a model of the existing ITS system, as well as a framework for implementing any future ITS projects. The regional ITS architecture is intended to align with the MPO's Mobilizing Tomorrow Smart City section. There's an action item there to conduct a regional inventory of ITS architecture and also to continue to plan for smart cities. Additionally, the regional ITS architecture is intended to help promote orderly and efficient ITS developments, which will hopefully help everyone reduce cost, time, and risk. And additionally, the ITS architecture will help improve connections and communications by establishing any institutional agreements and also assisting with the technical integration of ITS projects. Next slide, please. The regional ITS architecture will also help better inform planning and programming, as well as project implementation. In terms of planning and programming, there's a list of nationally recognized ITS services and ITS elements that communities can refer to. Additionally, the ITS architecture produces a living document and a website that can be continuously updated with any new ITS developments, and that can also serve as a reference for future ITS projects. In terms of project implementation, the regional ITS architecture helps provide a context within a systems engineering approach. So within, if you go back a slide, yeah. So within the traditional V diagram of a systems engineering approach, the regional ITS architecture will sit all the way to the left. That will help provide some context and also kick off the traditional V diagram. Next slide. The MPO's regional ITS architecture was last updated in 2009 and has a horizon of 10 years or until 2019. If you consider the explosion of growth in technology since 2009, it's about time to update the regional ITS architecture. The regional ITS architecture has many components, among them are a regional description. This regional description will be the MPO planning area or the Des Moines metro area. There will be a list of stakeholders as well as the needs, roles, and responsibilities. This will be the MPO member governments as well as the departments and staff. There'll be a list of ITS inventory and ITS services, as well as interconnects and information flows. These are the relationships between the ITS elements in a system, as well as the information that is exchanged among those elements. There will also be ITS standards, which govern those information exchanges, as well as institutional agreements among the stakeholders in the system, as well as a plan for continued architecture maintenance. Next slide. MPO staff has already begun the regional ITS architecture update process. We reached out to the different MPO communities and the departments and staff for their assistance. So thank you for your assistance so far and for your continued assistance during our update. Next month, we'll continue to present more information on ITS. If you have any questions about the regional ITS architecture update, I'll be happy to take them at this time. Thank you.
All right, any questions for Z?
So Z, this is John Davis with Des Moines. What's the timeline that you expect this to take, and when could we expect a final report or preliminary?
I think it will take some time to kind of get through all the different phases of the ITS update. It will depend on how quickly everyone can get back to me, but I kind of scheduled this maybe summer of next year, hopefully at the earliest, but we'll have to see.
And then is this an effort that is all being done in-house, or are you going to engage a consulting firm?
Yeah, this is all done in-house.
Thank you.
Yep.
Any other questions for Z? All right, thanks, Z. Next up is a report on pavement conditions. Andrew.
Yes, thank you. A copy of the report was sent out by email this morning, so I imagine some of you haven't had a chance to look at that. So when you do have a chance to take a look at it, feel free to let me know if you have any questions later on. So as a quick background, the data that was included in this report was collected from all paved roads in the MPO planning area in 2019. This is just a continuation of the pavement collection cycle that's led by the Iowa DOT and Intrans from Iowa State, and this has been happening since 2013. Point data that's collected through this program includes rutting, cracking, roughness, that sort of thing. The data that we use, though, is calculated through Intrans, which groups like pavements together to create a pavement condition index, or PCI, with a score for each for each road segment. So city and county PCIs are calculated differently. This is because PCI is looking to track different things, since cities and counties generally have different roadways that serve different purposes. PCIs, the vary also based on the type of pavement too. So things that can change in the PCI are both the metrics that are used, but also the weights of those metrics as well. So generally you have a higher weighting for roughness in county PCI than you would for city, for example. Next slide. Thank you. So the report itself is broken into two sections. The first couple of pages looks at information at the MPO regional level, but then the last part of the report, which is the bulk of it, has a page for each community looks at that community specific metrics versus the MPO average. So on the screen before you is a table that looks at the pavement condition index. Here at the MPO, we utilize two different measures. One is average pavement condition by roadway miles. The second is the percentage of roads in poor or worse condition. So we track that using two different time frames. One is going back to 2013, since we've been tracking this sort of thing. And then also we incorporated 2017 as a timestamp, since that is the data that we use to in the updated Mobilizing Tomorrow Long Range Transportation Plan. So as you can see, since 2013, we are still down from that pavement collection. So we've seen a 3% decrease since then in the average pavement condition, and then a almost 6% increase in the percentage of poor or worse roads in poor or worse condition. Since 2017, however, we've actually seen an uptick or a bettering of our pavement condition. So we've seen a 5% increase in the average PCI, and then a reduction, a 1% reduction in the percentage of poor roads in poor or worse condition. Next slide. This chart serves to provide a snapshot of each jurisdiction's pavement condition broken out by quality in order to compare to other communities in the region. But then at the top, you can also see the MPO average breakdown for all 2,500 miles of roadway. And it's important to note too here that the miles listed here are centerline miles for the most part, and may or may not line up with what your community has for your centerline miles of roadway. Next slide. This is a new chart that wasn't included in the report from 2017. This breaks down the average PCI by federal functional class. So the larger red line is the regional average. And as you can see, for the most part, the higher federal functional class roads have better condition, which makes sense since those tend to be the more heavily traveled roads, with the exception of minor collector. Minor collector is a federal functional class that mostly exists in rural areas, and as such, we have very limited miles of minor collector. So I think how highly it is shown on PCI is just a function of how little miles we have. But generally, it follows that major will be higher than minor, minor will be higher than major collector, that sort of thing. As mentioned, each community has their own community report, or community page that shows both the breakdown of percentage of roadway versus the MPO average, but then also does a breakdown by federal functional class for that community versus the regional average. That is all I have for this report. Moving forward, we are looking to incorporate a forecasting element into this. So we will be doing another forecasting report, which relies a lot on the expected road maintenance budgets that each community has. So over the next couple of months, I will be reaching out to each community to try to get an accurate gauge on what is expected for maintenance budgets for each community. If I'm not able to get a hold of or get accurate information, I will have to rely on the street finance reports that are put out by the DOT, but those aren't always the most accurate things. So we're trying to rely on each community to give us what their expected budgets are over the next 5, 10 plus years. So with that, if you have any questions, please let me know.
All right, any questions for Andrew on the pavement condition report? All right, thanks, Andrew. Next up is upcoming events. Gunnar.
Hi, everyone. One thing I want to bring to your attention is the Iowa Pavement Management Program end of year workshop coming up here next week on Thursday, December 10th. A Google search will get you there as well, but I put the URL at the bottom of the page here. With that, I'll take any questions.
All right, thanks, Gunnar. Any questions for him? All right, next up would be any other non-action items of interest to committee. All right, hearing none, next meeting date is January 7th, 2021. Everybody have a good Christmas and Happy New Year. We are adjourned. Thanks.
Same to you.